when we went to Tel Aviv for the Eurobasket 2017 with the whole television crew, like 2 commentators, I would say 2 or 3 operators, our producer, we were like 6 or 7 people, somebody from the news, somebody from the website. And, on the first day, our producer said, like, let's try some interesting cuisines.
Okay. Good luck.
And next to our hotel was like Ethiopian restaurant.
Okay.
And we just went there. There was an open table for us, like 6 or 7 people. And yeah, we ordered some traditional Ethiopian food. African food is like some meat on bread, on top of bread. There's some vegetables. You eat everything with your hands, And it's just me and my colleague commentator. We decided to have a shot of tequila before eating.
Smart.
And after eating, again, have another shot. And all the other guys didn't do it. So the next day, everybody on our crew was having a diarrhea, except of us.
Wow.
The 2 of us were fine. Like, we woke up, maybe we felt something a little bit in our stomach, but, before going out of the hotel, we just felt fine, and went to the arena to take our accreditations, to do all that stuff. And all the other guys were having the worst day of the trip. And we just had 2 shots of tequila, and apparently it helped us,
And they say that alcohol harms.
I mean, when you use it smartly for a purpose, it can help you, but obviously it harms.
And smart quantity.
When like it's a shot before meal and a shot after meal is fine, but if it extends to like 6 shots, 7 shots, then maybe we have a different picture. But yeah, in that case, I realized, like, when you're eating some exotic food that your body is not used to, you should actually take a vodka shot or tequila shot, or
just
at least some Coke.
It really helps.
At least some Coke, because we're not used to it. We're Lithuanians. We're used to eating like potato pancakes, sour cream on the side. I don't know, just a big lump of meat, with potatoes or some other vegetables. Nothing fancy, nothing unusual, and we're used to it. But obviously, when you travel to Asia, Africa, your body might be shocked by what you consume. So that's the lesson to be learned, right?
Yeah, we're missing August in this pod, and not because of food poisoning. He has some other health issues that we had to postpone this pod, and he's playing the or die game in the second Lithuanian division, the playoff stage against Rytas youth team. So he will try to recover for that game. But there's some stuff we have to discuss, both from the previous week and looking forward ahead. We already actually discussed some of the hottest topics, including Mike James suspension and Matthias Lezord, but this was only for BN Plus members that you can become on basketnews.com/plus. The entire episode was available only for BN Plus members. So we won't repeat ourselves again in this pod, but I mean, players, teams, they're just delivering with some content, whether it was the first game winner by Sasha Vezenkov in his EuroLeague career, or Shane Larkin just announcing goofball hour after disappointing Anadolu Efes loss. So there's plenty of content to discuss, but let's start from positives, okay? Let's start from positives. Sasha Vezenkov hitting his first ever game winner in the EuroLeague. He just had this game winner in the Greek league, but it's different. How did you feel about that shot?
I mean, it's a great shot. He had a mismatch, a size mismatch against Thomas Dimsha, but it's not like he was close to the rim or it was an easy shot. Nothing close to it. I mean, it was a fadeaway. He was falling to the ground. And he said he felt like it's short, but it went in.
McKissick also said that he felt that it was short.
But it was a perfect shot, And obviously before that, he hit a similar shot again with a smaller defender on him. So maybe that helped him as well. It was not a buzzer beater. It was a game winner because obviously Olympiacos still had to defend Zalgiris' last possession. And in my opinion, Ulanovas had a more or less clean look with his floater. It just didn't go in. But Vezenkov showed that he's clutch. Of course, throughout the whole game, again, he did everything we're used to this season, like all these cuts to the basket assisted by Mustafa Fall, some 3-pointers, some mid-range shots, basically scoring without dribbling the ball. That's what he does all the time. But that shot, yeah, it was amazing, really, because you can say it's easy over a smaller defender, but when it's a fadeaway shot and he looked off balance to me, it's really hard.
He couldn't see the rim, actually.
Yeah, and we saw Mirotic hitting some similar shots, I think, in the past couple of seasons. But this time it was Vezenkov, and obviously it shows that not only he's a great player, not only he's an MVP frontrunner, but at the same time he's clutch,
And that's the thing, because throughout the season, he was just delivering with amazing, spectacular, probably historical stats through the first 3 quarters.
Yeah.
And the fourth quarter, it was more about Kostas Lukas and some other guys just clinching wins and finishing the games. Now Lukas was out. He was not playing, and Sasha Vezenkov had the chance to decide the game. He did it, and EuroLeague actually put the headline and article after that game, saying Sasha Vezenkov took a huge step in MVP race with a game winner in Kaunas. Would you agree that this game winner kind of, not just Olympiacos clinched, they became the first EuroLeague team to clinch the playoff berth.
Yeah.
Would you agree that Vezenkov, this game winner, maybe it was just this missing piece, missing cherry on the cake, to say that, hey, this conversation, this whole race is over. No matter how we will finish the remaining of the regular season. And unfortunately, we have the playoffs that probably counts in this MVP consideration in the EuroLeague. But even besides that, if it's enough to say that Vezenkov is MVP.
Maybe it's enough in our eyes, but in the actual voting, you need to get to the Final Four. There's no other way. I cannot imagine in this system where we're not treating it as a regular season award. I cannot imagine somebody being an MVP after losing a quarterfinal series. So in the end, you win the regular season. You're the first seed. You have the best numbers and everything. But if you lose the best of 5, you're not going to get the MVP, in my opinion.
Maybe it depends. It depends on who you have next. Because do you see any other, somebody who's closest to Vezenkov? Because for me personally, there are a lot of guys, but I wouldn't exclude one person that you could say, oh, if not Vezenkov, that's him for sure. And maybe that also could help Vezenkov even if they lose the playoff series.
Let's say Matthias Lesoren, if Partizan push for the Final Four somehow.
If they win over Olympiacos, for instance, and Lesoren is dominating.
For example. I'm just saying that we saw how Mirotic, even not last season, but the season before, even after making it to the Final Four, he just struggled in the series versus Zenit, and that cost him the MVP, because in the regular season, it was clear that he's the MVP. Micic is behind him, but after what happened in the playoff series, it all shifted towards Micic, and he was awarded the MVP. So in my opinion, again, it should be a regular season award.
Yeah.
The playoffs shouldn't even count to this. Then we could just vote on after the regular season. And in this case, I would agree that Vezenkov is the clear MVP right now, even without that buzzer, not buzzer beating game winner. Even without that, it's obvious. But in this case, we just have to wait and see what happens in the playoffs. We do imagine that Olympiacos, the way they're playing, have to win the series. Doesn't matter who they're facing. Anyway, they will be favorites with the home court advantage. So I think they're a Final Four lock in my eyes, and probably at the moment they look like favorites to win the title. So Vezenkov is leading the team, but to me, his numbers and everything is more about the team than him. It's not the case where the player takes over games when he's the ball handler. He controls everything on the court. It's not like we look at Maccabi, we have Lorenzo Brown or Wade Baldwin. These guys dominate the game with the ball in their hands. Vezenkov is like the best product of this great Olympiacos system.
He's like the ambassador of this amazing system that makes him great, Kostas Lukas great, and even some other players
Exactly,
great.
Because if you put Vezenkov on some other team with great players, but not necessarily this great system, he probably wouldn't hit those MVP numbers. He could be a good spot-up shooter, he will get some points and everything, but you wouldn't see him dominating the way he is right now. So that's all the credit to Coach Barzokas and the whole Olympiacos team. This MVP award to me would be more about the team, not the individual.
Yeah. And before moving forward, I just wanted to give credit to other, let's say, MVP race players. And I think that there's one guy who's a bit underrated in this conversation. I'm not saying that this guy should take it over from Vezenkov, because I also agree that, the conversation should be over in the dream scenario. But I was impressed how Wade Baldwin improved his game in the second round of the EuroLeague regular season. His numbers were amazing. In the second, from the 18th EuroLeague round, he was averaging 20.2 points per game. Maccabi are 7-5, one of the best teams of this second round of the EuroLeague regular season. They're moving forward, clinching the 6th seed, and they won some big important games, including the game against Baskonia, where Baldwin was amazing with 24 points, 7 rebounds, 8 assists. And Maccabi in the second round, they basically won against all neighbors of the standings, which is super important, looking at head-to-head records and just moving into the playoffs. He's 5th in points generated through scoring and assisting. He's averaging career highs and with 17.1 points, 4.5 assists, and 16.5 performance index rating. I just love what I see about Wade Baldwin this season, and especially now. And not just because he was amazing, but he also carried the team over in big games when Lorenzo Brown was missing, when he was injured for 5 games, I think. So that was super important for Maccabi moving forward.
I completely agree, and I honestly had a lot of doubt before the season whether they can click together.
We all did, yeah.
And I have to apologize to the Maccabi team and to Wade Baldwin. He's having a great season, especially the second part of the season. Maybe the first part of the season was more about Lorenzo Brown because he was carrying the team. But in the second part, Baldwin really stepped up when Brown was injured. Now they're playing together, and you can see that sometimes Lorenzo has a better night, sometimes Wade Baldwin has a better night. And actually, after that last win over Baskonia, Wade Baldwin said that they're the best backcourt duo right now in the league, something like that.
Could be. Would you agree with that?
Probably at the moment, but also he said that, but it will count for nothing if we don't make the playoffs. So that's true. That's a good statement, that maybe we're playing as the best duo right now, but we still have to make it to the playoffs to prove a point. And I love watching Maccabi, honestly, especially when they're playing at home. And I agree that Baldwin deserves a lot of credit, but I also have another name in a sort of MVP discussion. To me, it's Canan Musa.
Okay.
He is so close to 60-40-90 club. Like, he's hitting 59.3% two-pointers, 40.3% three-pointers, and 87% free throws. So he's close to these Decolo numbers. Yeah. And he's the most consistent Real Madrid player in my eyes during this regular season, because sometimes we saw Gabi Dek taking over in some games. Edy Tavares, of course, he generates these big numbers because
he's always there.
He's getting the rebounds, blocks, and everything. But when you're thinking about who's leading that team, who's leading the offense this season, to me, it's Canan Musa. And he is, well, let's be real, a rookie in the EuroLeague, because his past experiences in the EuroLeague shouldn't count because he barely even played or was too young when he was with Olympiacos. So
he was with Efes, I think. I mean, he also played for
with Efes, or what team was he before he went to the NBA?
Team, I think. Maybe it was.
Zagreb? Yeah. I'm sorry, not Olympiacos. It was Cedevita.
Yeah. Okay.
And he played like 10 games.
He was already good, but I mean, it was different EuroLeague, different environment.
It's his first real EuroLeague season, and he's just so consistent, and he's winning games for Real Madrid. So I think he's in the discussion as well. Again, if it happens so that in the playoffs, let's say Olympiacos faces some struggles. Vezenkov struggles maybe, and Real Madrid just wins a clean sweep series, and Janan Musa is averaging like 20 points per game. That gives him some hope of winning the MVP. But to me, he's maybe the future MVP of the EuroLeague. Maybe in the future he can win this award. But right now, it's Vezenkov. We're just talking about the other guys as sort of being in the picture, but not like in a close race.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And regarding Vezenkov, I had this question. You already mentioned that we had wrong takes, wrong opinions last summer about some EuroLeague players, about some EuroLeague teams. And I just wanted to compare your thinking of potential future in the NBA for Vezenkov last summer and how your opinion has changed throughout the season, watching him dominating and probably watching him at the peak of his game. It's really hard to see him playing even better. I mean, he was already doing historical stuff in the first part of the season. Okay, in the second part of the season, it was not so easy to, to keep that crazy momentum, but probably we're witnessing peak Vezenkov. Is peak Vezenkov enough for the NBA, and in what ways your opinion has changed regarding his NBA potential?
My opinion didn't change much, honestly. It all depends on the environment, whether the team that could sign him would play to his strengths. If we're talking right now about Sacramento Kings, well, they have a big man creating, a European player, Domantas Sabonis. We have De'Aaron Fox, their point guard. They play a lot of handoff actions. They have good ball movement. And Vezenkov is very good moving off the ball. But NBA scouts will always have doubts about him, whether he's a 3 or a 4. Is he capable of defending? Does he contain the necessary athleticism to play in the NBA and all that stuff? And my doubt is about the NBA rather than Vezenkov himself. I imagine that NBA teams might see him as a role player and just put him as a spot-up shooter somewhere in their spacing. And in that case, I cannot see him being successful in the NBA environment. Like I said, to me, him being the MVP of the season is more about the Olympiacos system rather than just him. Do I see an NBA team playing to his strengths? If they sign him as a role player, a backup, or something like that, I don't think so. I think he's EuroLeague star material, but the NBA maybe doesn't fit his strengths.
That's a good point, because I remember I had this conversation about Nicola Melli. Nicola Melli was also put something like a spot-up shooter in the NBA environment in New Orleans. And I remember having this conversation where Melli, he had enough of the NBA because he felt that he could do way more things, posting, passing, shooting. He didn't feel as just a spot-up shooter. But that's the problem. That's different from what NBA team needs and what they expect from you. And they don't need another player who could, carry the ball and stuff like that. So I think it's the same for Vezenkov. It's one of those doubts that the NBA people also have, the role he's gonna get. Because I had some interesting, I had multiple conversations with NBA people, and they said that if you put him as a spot-up shooter, for instance, he's not as good as Nikola Mirotic was in the NBA. They have doubts if he could not use to his strengths, if he could be as efficient even as maybe Maxi Kleber is in Dallas. There are, his athleticism, his defense, of course, those question marks that he always had. But I believe that in Europe, there's, this hype, this excitement about his future, why he couldn't play in the NBA, being such a great off-ball player. But NBA is just a different world. And so far, I would say from all those conversations that I had, I heard more skepticism than excitement and true belief in his NBA potential.
That makes sense, because if let's say Sacramento Kings sign him, they wouldn't sign him as an MVP with big money for a big role in the team. They would sign him to some mid-level contract. And when you have a contract like that, if the coach sees, well, what the NBA coach usually sees, is the team winning with that player on the court, or is the team losing with that player on the court? He would take some data with all the assistant coaches, the analytics, and if they see that, let's say Vezenkov on defense is a problem. And offensively, he's just a spot-up shooter who's averaging like 3 or 4 3-pointers per game, scoring like 38%. It would be an easy decision for them just to put him out of the rotation. Because we can talk about Gabriel Deck being one of the best small forwards in EuroLeague. For the NBA, he's just not what they need right now. Like, he's not a shooter. He's a small forward who loves to play in the post. Nobody in the NBA plays through their small forward in the post unless that small forward is Kevin Durant or Kawhi Leonard. And Gabi Deck was just stuck on the bench in Oklahoma City. So he's back in Europe right now, and we're again seeing Gabriel Deck as one of the best small forwards / power forwards, doing all the spin moves and everything. And honestly, if we're talking about a stretch player to go to the NBA, it's better if you're a 4/5, if you can play as a stretch center, rather than a 3/4 that Vezenkov is. I would love to see him continuing with Olympiacos for more years, actually, because I just doubt that NBA is the right fit for him.
Yeah, and even though Vezenkov, he doesn't require the ball, he's a great off-ball player, but it's still, to use his strengths, you need to involve him. And that takes...
For sure.
Not just him being on the corner, but giving him opportunities. There has to be some ball movement, players movement on the court. And even though I love Sabonis and the Aaron Fox pair, it's just different in basketball. It's not
Although I could see that two smart European players, two left-handed players like Sabonis and Vezenkov could create some good chemistry together. Again, we don't know what, for example, Coach Brown thinks, because you talked to him during the Eurobasket, and he had some good ideas about Sabonis when he saw Lithuania playing Valanciunas and Sabonis together. And now we see that Mike Brown actually learned how to use Sabonis, because in the first month of the season, it looked like Sabonis is underused. And right now, all of a sudden, he's the third best center in the league behind Jokic and Embiid. Anyway, we were talking a lot about Olympiacos. I just wanted to say one thing, like, who do you think was the best Zalgiris player in the fourth quarter of Olympiacos Zalgiris game?
The best Zalgiris player in the
Because
fourth
I have
quarter.
a very smart answer.
Give it to me.
That was Tariq Black.
Oh, yeah.
The best
I
Zalgiris
remember.
player.
Yeah, okay.
He is responsible for the Zalgiris comeback. That's like, Bartzokas always has this decision to make whether he trusts Black or Bolomboy as a backup center in that game. So this time he went with Tariq Black, and I think in the fourth quarter it was just tragic Bronson, as Shaquille O'Neal says. Like, honestly, they were up by 12. It looked like the game is over. I think Žalgirio Arena even got silent. But then Tariq Black started doing all these things: a charge, a bad post up, not raising his hand against Roland Schmitz in those pick and pops that Žalgiris was running. I mean, so much happened in these 4 or 5 minutes that basically Žalgiris got back to the game, and then Bartzokas just had to put Mustafa Fall back on the court, who was passing the ball really well in that game. And Olympiacos almost lost the game, actually. It would have been a very sweet extra win for Žalgiris. But in the end, Olympiacos still prevails.
No, speaking of Žalgiris, it's just crazy to see Edgaras Ulanovas taking potential game-winner shots. It just tells a lot about your offensive potential that you have. And even though Brazdeikis had the bad game, I would rather go with Brazdeikis. He's, for me, obviously the best one-on-one player in this team, and he would draw some defensive attention. There would be some kick-out pass opportunities, or he could finish by himself, because he has that mentality. No matter what happened before, or how many shots he missed, he could clinch that shot. He could clinch that game.
Yeah, maybe, but he was not in the rhythm for that game. Ulanovas in the past hit some clutch shots against Zvezda, against Milan. So Kazis Maksvitis probably has that feel.
Yeah.
And you cannot go against his decisions.
Just having Ulanovas to decide your game just tells about how grateful Žalgiris should be being in this position of still participating in this playoff
That
conversation.
is true, of course. Well, I mean, in the picture we had before Keenan Evans' injury, it would be it was clear that he's the guy, and Isaiah Taylor was out for that game also.
Even without him, I'm real surprised that they're still in this mix. I thought that when Keenan Evans was out, I thought that, okay, it was a great fairy tale, but now it's over.
Everyone is surprised, but they're still fighting for the playoffs.
If you're the first seeded team, and let's say you're not Olympiacos, don't focus on matchups, but if you're just first seeded team in general, who's the worst opponent for you coming off 8th seed? Let's say that in this conversation we have Maccabi, Partizan, Baskonia, Zalgiris, Valencia. Okay, Efes counts, but let's say they're done. I'm not ruling them out, but I don't
want to talk about Efes because they didn't win against Partizan. They have these nightmare fourth quarters, and it's not the first time this season. Even against Real Madrid, they had a nightmare fourth quarter, which almost cost them the game. So I'm not gonna talk about Efes. If they had 2 wins last week, maybe not maybe then for sure I would be talking about them. In this case, the worst possible matchup from the 8th seed to me is Partizan, because facing Željko Obradović in a best-of-5 series can be tricky. They have a very good, very smooth offense. Defensively, they got better than they were in the second part of the season. Now they have a clear rotation, and I think they have enough depth to play a good series. And Željko is the mastermind, So to me, that's the probably worst matchup you can get from the 8th seed.
Yeah, I agree with you. Talented roster. They're still improving their game. Huge fan base. I really don't want them. Although our other teams, and what's great about Partizan, that they did really good in the second part of the regular season. They tie for the 3rd best record in the second part of the regular season of 8 wins in 12 games. For instance, Olympiacos is the best second part season team with 10 wins in 12 games. Madrid has 9-3, and then there comes Fener, Maccabi, and Valencia with 7 wins. I just tried to check the record of all those teams playing against top 5 teams, and I was a bit surprised to see that actually Partizan has the worst record, but they still have at least few games to play against these top teams. Partizan, they have 2 wins in 6 games. And I was surprised to see Valencia on top of this list. They won 4 of 8 games against top 5 teams, and they haven't lost more than by 7 points against these top 5 teams.
Okay.
But, it can happen in the regular season. I'm just not sure about the playoffs, where nobody gonna underestimate you. And Valencia, I love their team. I'm already surprised that they're still in this playoff race. But they have the 16th worst defensive rating in the second part of the regular season. And I'm not really a big believer of those teams that rely in offense if we speak about Game 5 series. So Partizan, they still kept the best offense in the EuroLeague. And what's the best about them, they had the worst defensive rating. In the second part of the regular season, they improved their defense to the 6th best, which is amazing.
And obviously, the second worst opponent you can get from the 8th seed is Maccabi, because they're a hot team right now. The players are happy. They're playing this free-flowing basketball. It's just the thing that they do that very well at home. And away from home, maybe only that game against Efes stands out. And Partizan, they've been proving that they can play very well away from home. Efes, Fenerbahce, even against Zalgiris, they had almost a perfect game in Kaunas. So Maccabi, as well as Baskonia, they usually...
Especially if you're Real Madrid, you're afraid of Baskonia, because they're like 0-4 this year.
Yeah, they lost in ACB League like last weekend.
Yeah.
So, Maccabi and Baskonia, they're very good at home. They're not so good away from home. And if we're talking about the 8th seed, you obviously have the home court advantage. And if it goes to Game 5, you're at home. And Game 5, even at home versus Željko Obradović,
it might get tricky.
Yeah, exactly.
So these are teams that you would try to avoid. You said that you don't want to talk about Efes, but we must speak of.
I said I don't want to talk about them in this conversation about the 8th seed, because they disappointed me so much with that loss versus Partizan.
Yeah, and last week we started this catch and shoot segment where we're doing some big smart analysis of social media activities. And Shane Larkin just announced this goofball hour after the loss against Partizan. Aradonas can put some screens on our TV. And basically, as the last time we had this segment sponsored by Mike James, this time we will have this segment sponsored by Shane Larkin because he was just creating content by himself. So it was a surprising outing on Twitter, I would say, after this comment by random basketball fan. He tweeted this after just I think it was just Efes tweet or something about the game, with the poster of the game.
Yeah.
Out of the playoffs, well done, guys. Thank you, Shane Larkin. Phenomenal performance again. And it got Shane Larkin on fire. He said that most important game of the year, and I played 22 minutes in the last in the last 3 minutes of the game out of reach. So shut that shit up, Goofy. And it just started. What was your reaction? Watching him going off on Twitter and focusing in first tweets, focusing on his playing time.
I mean, players going out on Twitter doesn't even surprise me anymore. It just happens with the NBA players, with the EuroLeague players. And I can understand his frustration, first of all. We actually asked our colleague, former player Linas Kleisa on Lithuanian podcast, what does he think about it? Because he was a star player for Olympiacos. And he says, I understand Shane Larkin. He's one of the best players. He shouldn't play just 22 minutes. And in this case, I agree. He was underplayed in that game. Maybe you can say mistreated. He is one of the best guards in the league, and it's unimaginable that in the most important game of the season he plays just 22 minutes, especially knowing that on Tuesday versus Real Madrid he was cooking, and he basically hit the most important shot of the game with 1 minute left. That was a three-pointer when they were down by one. So I understand Shane Larkin. I understand his frustration. I do believe he's right in this situation, but should he talk about it so much publicly? That's a matter of opinion. Maybe you can discuss these things internally with your coach, with your teammates and everything. And now he just started responding to random fans on Twitter, complaining about his playing time. It doesn't look right, although I'm always for players being open, honest, and maybe sharing something more on Twitter than we were used to, like 10 or 15 years ago when there was no Twitter, no social media. Then we just see these players for 40 minutes on the court and that's it.
I actually endorse those tweets because I endorse the whole basketball conversation and discussion. Even the last time when Mike James tweeted about this box and one game against Alba Berlin, I don't know, probably didn't change his opinion at all, but I believe that through these discussions, especially when the head coaches were involved from the different teams, where Augustas even did this breakdown of that game, we also discussed, I mean, it brought a big discussion on the table, and I believe that through these discussions, you can also change your mind, you can learn, you can take something from it, even if you agree with it or not. So I believe that every discussion is good. Not every discussion on Twitter is great because the quality level of those discussions can be very different, and maybe it's just worthless to go and discuss those things with fans, with haters, mostly, as what some Partizan fans also said to us when we reacted to Mike James reacted to their tweets, that they were just joking, trash talking and stuff. But I think, as Shane Larkin in some other tweets, he said that because he was also offended by, you can go through these tweets actually, Radonis. He was told by some fans that, hey, it's unprofessional for you to come out right now. You still have 5 games remaining. You can still make the playoffs, and maybe it would be better to stay, calmer and silent about it. But I liked what Shane said. You can talk all this shit about us on Twitter, and when I say something but not write something, suddenly it becomes a problem. So I kind of get it, and I'm biased in this conversation because I'm media representative, and these guys, they just create content for me. So I'm not sure if Ergin Ataman liked it. Maybe it adds some tension inside the team. Although in some other tweets, Shane Larkin explained that even he didn't want to play all 40 minutes. He feels he shouldn't be blamed for just being a player and wanted to play more in big games of the season. So he kind of chilled down later, I would say. So it depends on what
this is a good
makes.
response.
Yeah,
this is a good response to someone who's just talking nonsense. But
you and Will better end the friendship with Mike James. This could be the best advice of your career. What?
Who are you to give advices to a back-to-back champion about his career?
Yeah.
Honestly, but that's the thing. We don't have a problem with those tweets, right? But what's important, whether his own teammates, coaches, and even staff, but whether they have a problem with it.
And if maybe they don't, or not.
Maybe they don't want players to be so public about internal issues like playing time.
But what's the difference if he actually said something like that inside the team? I mean, if that's the first time he came out with these
we don't know what happens in the locker room. We don't know their private conversations. But I mean, sometimes some things should stay there.
Yeah.
And when it goes on Twitter, obviously there are people siding with the coach and some people siding with the player. You always have these like two camps. One will say that in this game, his performance was not good enough, so the coach is right to play him just 22 minutes. And the others will say, look, but he's one of the best guards in the league. He should be trusted more. He has done it before in some games in fourth quarters, scoring big-time shots, and he should play at least 30 minutes in the most important game of the season. So, and then you will have people disagreeing on things. Maybe that's not necessary. It doesn't help the team in any way. If you want to say something to your coach, you say it to your coach directly. But I understand that after losing such an important game, you're full of emotions, you're frustrated, and some people just take their frustration out on Twitter. It just happens to be so. And it's not like basketball players are unique in this way. You can see football players, tennis players, various sports athletes doing the same thing. After a painful loss, they go on Twitter, they start blaming other people, referees or whatever, and maybe it helps them feel better. I don't know. I mean, I tweet sometimes stuff about basketball games or football games, but these are my takes. They don't influence any teams or players. I'm just like a media guy, a sports commentator, right? But when a basketball player starts tweeting about his own team and his own coach's decisions, some people might feel that it's not right.
I was going back and forth thinking if Shane was right, not just coming out on Twitter, but also about focusing on his playing time, because honestly speaking, he's in a difficult stretch right now. He had this amazing game against Real Madrid, but basically he played just he made this crucial shot, but he basically played just one great quarter, scoring 13 points to turn the game around against Madrid. Because in the last 3 games, he was almost scoring. And I think that the other best, highest scoring quarter was like with 4 points or something. And you can feel and you can see that he might be affected by missing the huge part of the season due to his injury. He might be affected by the fact that he joined the team during the season, which already added Bill Clyburn, who had a huge role in this team, carrying the team together with Vasa Misic, playing huge minutes. With Vasa, they were leading the EuroLeague in minutes played per game. So it's not easy by missing the 2-3 months of the start of the season to get in, even though these teammates very well. But it's dynamics of the offensive flow is a bit different, so it might also impacted his game. But then I thought that it's Shane Larkin. I mean, he's the player that he can be silent, he can be off for 3 quarters. But when you're playing the most important games of the season, you still have to keep him on the court. Even though Elijah Bryant was playing really great stretch recently, but you have to keep Shane Larkin because you never know when he can change the game, when he can turn around the game. So I kind of get it, Shane Larkin and his frustration.
Especially knowing that they were without Rodrigue Beaubois.
Yeah.
Because Beaubois is an elite shooter. If you have Beaubois hot, then you can say maybe at the time he's the better option. But Beaubois was out. He wasn't playing. So I side with Shane Larkin. To end the conversation, I can say I have a lot of respect for him. I love his game. And, well, sometimes things just don't go your way in life as well as in basketball.
Yeah, and to be honest, I still think that Efes, although they have a losing head-to-head record against 3 of the potential playoff teams, Maccabi, Baskonia, and Partizan, which makes their playoff chase really complicated because they not just have to chase those teams, but they have to have at least one win more than them.
So they need to win all 5 games left.
Basically, yes. And according to Darius Garolis data, they have the easiest schedule. They play 3 games at home. For instance, they play Monaco at the last game of the regular season, and Monaco might be in the situation where this game won't matter at all for them. So they might play their second unit guys. I mean,
but on the 6th of April, they have this Istanbul derby.
Yeah, that's going
to be the toughest game.
The toughest game. But I really believe that with this talent, they still have a decent shot at making the playoffs. But what I think puts them away from the playoffs, at least right now, is it's not about Shane Larkin. It's not about Will Clyburn. It's not about Misic. I think it's not about pointing fingers at each other. It's just about the details. I mean, this team has, in the second part of the regular season, they have the worst defensive rating. When you watch them play, sometimes I get myself even shouting at them like, hey guys, just make that foul, a smart foul in transition. Stop them before letting them to score easy points. I don't see them, fighting for these 50-50 balls. I still see them having communication problems defensively. I just still see them lacking of discipline. And it starts from each other. It starts from some focus and being disciplined, starting from defense. I think that's what they've been lacking the most, not just this year, but in the recent seasons.
Well, I think it starts from coaching, honestly. They've been successful winning with player power, but this season I think they're learning that you need to respect the regular season a bit more. And you need to pay attention to details because we see all these other teams always being so focused, always being so disciplined, well-coached teams. This season, I don't see any coaching in Efes except of substituting players. Like, you're just going to face all these teams without any analysis. Like, all these other teams, they watch tapes. They emphasize the other team's strengths. It seems like Efes doesn't really care about the other team. They just care about their own game. But in EuroLeague right now, you have so much quality that you have to be prepared. You must understand who you're defending, who you're dealing with. It's not just about the rotations. It's not just about deciding whether Tibor Pleiss or Ante Žižić is the better fit for this game. It's about details, and I think in the future, Efes will obviously have a good team. They just need to respect the regular season a bit more. Last season, they had similar issues, but it just sneaked into the playoffs, and after that, it was fine.
Yeah,
they were champions again.
Yes, respect the regular season. We're running out of time, so we're not going to discuss every Shane Larkin tweet that he made, but his thread is, of course, worth a watch. But please, Ardonas, put the slide number 7 on the screen. I just wanted to hear Rytis' opinion on Edy Tavares' perfect basketball player description. I think it was a collaboration by our social media guys and Edy Tavares, because I didn't see him speaking of those things to any other Spanish media outlet. But what do you think about this perfect player?
Well, it's normal that he goes for his teammates, first of all. That shows he's a really good teammate. Shooting, JC Carroll, for sure. Basketball IQ, Sergio Yui. Well, he's on that top shelf with many other great players like Spanoulis, Charas, Navarro, and many others. So you can't go wrong with that. Passing, Sergio Rodriguez, again.
I mean, you
Some
can choose
people might prefer. I would choose Teodosic.
Yeah, me too.
I would choose Milos, but Sergio Rodriguez is a good
also
choice.
Top tier passer, so
for sure,
I understand Edy. He's not even biased. Okay, it's a bit biased take, but still, I get it.
Athleticism, Gershon Yabusele. He's a strong guy, but you can take your own athleticism if you're Edy Tavares. And handles Mike James. That's an interesting one because he's not a Real Madrid player. But I do believe that Edy Tavares suffered from Mike James' handles this season, and he respects his game and respects his skills. So for sure, Mike James has sick handles. And leadership, Fidel Mendonca, on that I don't have much to say. I don't know the guy, but obviously Edy Tavares plays with him for the national team, and they qualified for the World Cup. So you can trust his judgment that maybe he's a good leader. So, Edy Tavares, some good picks here.
Yeah, although Instagram fans, they got wild about his picks.
I see these comments, but I mean, come on, like, he's a Real Madrid player. What do you expect him to choose? Barcelona players?
Exactly. But there were some funny comments, for instance. Perfect player, just see Vezenkov. Watch Yabusele live. The dude should not be on this list. He moves like a truck.
No, that's a very bad comment.
Yeah,
that's so much disrespect to Yabusele.
There's a lot of disrespect on Instagram, I would say.
I mean, I remember Yabusele running on fast breaks in the EuroBasket last season for Real Madrid. Maybe this season is not so great for him. Last season was better, but you should put some respect on his name.
He's underrated. He's really underrated, even in terms of athleticism. Man never heard of Serbia. Of course, what an odd list. Teodosic IQ, Spanoulis leadership, Kalaitis, Lucas, or Teodosic passing. Serbian fans also got disappointed. So
I mean, these guys...
Edy knew where he was coming.
Look, when somebody asks what's the perfect player for Nikola Milanovic, you can build your own perfect player. This was a segment where Edy Tavares had to pick his own. That's it.
Yeah. And just for the last part of the pod, actually this segment was inspired by one Olympiacos fan who was commentating in our BasketNews Twitter profile under Bogdan Bogdanovic news. Bogdanovic signed a new 4-year deal with Atlanta Hawks. It's a lucrative 68 million extension starting from the following year. And that was a great comment by this Olympiacos fan. He said that he will be 35 and his contract finish, and we may never see him again in EuroLeague. And it got me a bit nostalgic, and I thought of some of a little bit random Europeans that I would put it for you, and I will ask, what do you think? If we will ever see them again in Europe or not, based on their connection with European basketball, with some teams, based on their potential to be on a decline in the NBA and all the other factors. So just for the beginning, actually, what do you think about Bogdanovic? Do you see him returning?
Well, first of all, I think it's a very good extension. I expected him to stay in Atlanta, and he is staying. But about him returning... Yeah, I could see him playing, let's say, for Fenerbahce the same way Bjelica does right now, or maybe finishing with Partizan. I could see that happening.
Yeah, it probably depends on what kind of experience he will have with the Atlanta Hawks. If they won't compete for the title, if he won't be traded to the title team.
There are so many factors.
Bjelica's example is
how's
really
he feeling at the age of 35 or 36? Does he feel like he still has something to offer? injuries and everything. But in general, I do see him because he seems very interested in what happens in the EuroLeague. He follows his favorite teams and watches games, and we see him visiting the Final Four events. So, yeah.
Boban Marjanovic turns 35 this summer, I think. He's on an expiring contract with Houston. He earns less than $1 million, and he averaged career low of 3.2 points and 1.7 rebounds in 5 minutes during his tenure with Houston. What do you think about this?
NBA teams like him because of his locker room presence. NBA players like being around him. Maybe my guess would be that he continues signing these 1 year
he should
contracts.
sign in LA and also do some part of basketball stuff and then Hollywood stuff probably. Should be a part-time basketball player.
New career possibility. So I do see him signing, let's say this summer, again, a 1 year contract with some NBA team, and maybe he won't even play in Europe again.
The last time he was there, it was 2014-15 season. He averaged double-double for Red Star, and he made the first all EuroLeague team.
Yeah.
Dennis Schroeder turns 30 this September. He's on an expiring contract with Lakers, but he had a decent season with 12.7 points, 4.6 assists. But knowing how guards decline, and I'm not speaking about him returning to Europe in 3 or 2 years, maybe in 5 and 6, maybe kind of having Isaiah Thomas example or some others. Do you see him ever playing in Europe again?
No. To me, he's an NBA player. NBA is his style. Right now, he is better for the national team than he was like 3 or 4 years ago. He's more mature and everything. He's a better leader. We saw it in the Eurobasket, so we will continue seeing him playing for the German national team. But I don't see him in the EuroLeague or in the Bundesliga. He's having a good season in the NBA right now, especially in those games where LeBron James is out. He's more of a ball handler, and he is definitely a good fit for Lakers right now. So maybe they will even decide to keep him. And I just don't think a European comeback is a huge possibility. I do see him playing 3 or 4 more years in the NBA at least.
Yeah, for me, he doesn't have that bond with European club competitions, and he has this. For me, I think that he has this NBA mentality. Although he played for Braunschweig 10 years ago, and he was averaging 12 points in the German league when he was 19. Furkan Korkmaz. He turns 26 this summer. He's on his second year of his 3-year contract, $15 million contract with Philadelphia. Average career lows in Philly with 3.6 points in 9 minutes. He requested a trade.
He is a good shooter. NBA teams need players like that. He will find a roster spot for sure right now, and he's still pretty young. What is he, like 26, 25?
Yeah, I mean, he turns 26 this summer.
Okay, so I can see him being back in Europe, but after 5 or 6 years, not right now, definitely.
Maybe to Efes, where he has played before moving to the NBA.
Sometime later in his career, yes, but right now he's still NBA material, and you cannot judge him based on what's happening right now. You can remember what happened last season or even the season before, where he was a really solid, reliable shooter for the Philadelphia 76ers, even made some clutch shots. So he will get a roster spot next season for sure.
Evan Fournier turns 31 in the beginning of the next season. He's in his second year of his 4-year, $73 million deal with the New York Knicks, but Knicks has the option for the 24-25 season. He averages 6.8 points in 18 minutes on 35% field goal shooting, and it's his lowest since his rookie season.
Yeah, and he doesn't even play.
Yeah.
He doesn't even play right now. It's obvious he's not going to play in the playoffs. He's going to be kept on the bench.
And it's only about the Knicks, or he might have a hard time.
I'm not so sure. I mean, the Knicks are keeping Derrick Rose on the bench as well, so it's. Tom Thibodeau is one of those coaches that loves to have a really clear rotation of 8 or 9 players, and for others it's a struggle. Maybe some team will give him a chance, but we even saw in the Eurobasket that he's declined a little bit. I would like to see him in Europe. I hope we will see him in next few years. Obviously, now he's targeting the Paris Olympics, so he needs to decide what's best for him.
Mm-hmm.
Should he have more competitive playing time in the 23-24 season, let's say in the EuroLeague? Or should he just stay in the NBA where there's the risk you'll be kept on the bench? So if in the summer, does he become a free agent in the summer?
No,
not yet.
He still has 1 year guaranteed deal.
Well, then maybe he needs to ask for a trade or a buyout or something like that, because it's obvious that with the Knicks, it's like a dead end right now.
And it seems like that he's not the guy who is okay with sitting on the bench. So.
No, I don't think so. Although you can see him cheering for his teammates and everything, but I don't think
he's a baller.
I don't think he's happy with the current situation.
Serge Ibaka, he turns 34 before the season. A free agent, was waived by Pacers, just traded by Milwaukee Bucks. Average career low 4.1 points and 2.8 rebounds this season.
Somehow I have a feeling that he's gonna play in the ACB league.
Okay.
Somehow I do believe in that. During the lockout year, he played for Real Madrid. So I do have that feeling he's gonna play at least one season somewhere in Spain.
Maybe Manresa, where he was playing when he was 19.
I don't know. I'm just saying Spain, obviously, ACB League. But maybe he can still sign a veteran's contract for at least one more year in the NBA. But yeah, he's one of those players that definitely declined in the recent years.
And just the last guy of this list, Jonas Valanciunas, turns 31 this summer. He's on his first season of a 2-year, $30 million deal with Pelicans, averages 14.2 points and 9.7 rebounds.
Right now, he's still a very solid center in the NBA, but in 5 years, I do see him in Utena playing
or Zalgiris.
Maybe Zalgiris, but
because now tonight they have all those political fights.
But I mean,
and stuff.
5 years. I don't know what's going to happen after 5 years. It's just that he is from Utena. He loves fishing. He loves being somewhere in nature, by the lake. And I could see him, like, before retiring, playing this relaxation season where you play in the Lithuanian league. People are happy to see you. You're surrounded by a lot of positive energy and you just enjoy basketball a little bit more. So I can see that happening. Zalgiris, well, they're competing. Then you need to be ready for a tough season in the EuroLeague and everything. When he's 36 or 37, we don't know if he has that kind of motivation. Right now, he's still very dedicated towards the national team, obviously. In the NBA, he's already becoming a veteran, but he still has a lot to offer. So definitely, he's not going to be back in Europe for the next 2 or 3 years.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah,
that was the pod for today. We're cheer for Augustas to recover and to keep the series alive in the NKL playoffs. Thanks, Rytis, for your presence, and thank you all for our listeners. Just please, if you listened this to the end, so just put not much effort and just hit this like and subscribe button, because these simple steps really helps us to grow. See you soon.